The views expressed on the Nova Society are those of the panelists and guests and do not necessarily reflect the views or opinions of the Phoenix Research Institute or any institution which any panel member is associated. Welcome back to the Nova Society, a space where dialogue deepens understanding and civic responsibility comes to life. I'm Dr. Mark Bound, joined by our regular panel, Dr. Scott Gershwer and Dr. Brooklyn Ann Weldon. Together, we'll unpack the stories that matter most, exploring the headlines, the history, and the big ideas shaping today's conversations. Let's dive in and hear what the panel has for us today. All right, Brooklyn, what do we got today?
Well, today we have a question from Thomas, who lives in Toledo, Ohio. And Thomas asks, I do listen, thank you, Thomas, and rarely agree with anything your panel says. That's fine, Thomas, you don't need to agree, but I try to keep an open mind, and thank you, Thomas. So you were arguing over the U.S. boycotting the G20 summit. I don't get it. The U.S. has the greatest economy, and it's all down to the president's leadership. What do we need these other countries for anyway? You all talk about soft power, but you fail to mention that the cost of that power comes from our tax dollars. We have enough problems here at home. Why should we care about the rest of the world? Let them figure out their own problems. America first. Okay, Thomas, well, as I said, thank you for listening, and no, you don't need to agree. And thank you for keeping an open mind. That's important. Okay. I'm not clear what it is that is unclear about soft power. Soft power is extraordinarily important. And yes, it comes, I don't know when we failed to mention that the cost of the power comes from tax dollars. Yes, it does. However, the cost of soft power is something like 0.1% of GDP. It's extraordinarily cheap. You'll either have soft power at a very low cost, or you're going to have hard power, which is overt power, missiles, and military, the use of force at a very high cost in dollars and in human lives. And this is going to be a much higher cost to GDP. So soft power provides people with the ability to have medication, the ability to feel that their lives are being improved, the ability to eat, the ability to have safe water, the ability to feel security in their lives. And this is due to the people of the United States, directly on the bags of grain, the bags of soybeans, the bags of whatever it is that the United States government is providing to individuals. It will say, from the people of the United States. All right. So when we back off, China steps in. You need to understand that the emptiness is not going to remain empty. China, for example, is going to replace the United States. Moreover, the soft power also comes from American farmers and other American businesses from whom our government buys the products that it sends to these other countries. And using our tax dollars, yes, but we're using our tax dollars to put America first by buying from our own farmers to send abroad. We also use that money, our tax dollars, to buy from our own farmers for meals for school children, for SNAP, for other programs in our own country. And who benefits? The American farmer benefits. Who benefits? The rest of the world, and people then are stable in those countries. Okay? We are much better off as a planet and here at home to have stable countries around the world than countries such as the Russian invasion of Ukraine, Israel and Palestine, civil wars in Somalia, Syria, more displaced people, more uprooted people, more refugees, more famine, more all this stuff. If we can stop all that by sending food, by providing medicine, by providing assistance and support, for clean water, for livable environments, for small businesses, for women, their small businesses working from home. Women support their children, they support their families, they support their communities. This helps bring in money to the communities, and it helps the entire small rural area. All right, many areas still that are rural around the world do not have access to electricity. They do not have access to clean water. They do not have food security. All right, this is an entirely different way than an entirely different planet from here in the United States. So by providing those ports at 0.1% of our GDP, we can help to stabilize the situations in those countries, help send those children to school because there are fees to go to school in those countries, help provide teachers, help provide a stable environment where there's not civil war going on, where children can attend school, where people have food, where there's not Ebola and not Marburg and not all kinds of other diseases that are typhus and malaria. Those are big ones that are constant from unclean environments. And with people moving around all the time, those illnesses travel. That's how we wound up with Ebola in the United States, for instance. And believe me, you do not want Ebola coming here. So at a very, very fractional cost, we're supporting our farmers, we're supporting our own children, and we're supporting other countries to prevent them from having or to reduce their chances of violence that then helps to ensure their economic growth and their opportunities to trade, which then helps support our opportunities to trade. What do we need the other countries for? Well, how much coffee can we grow in this country, right? We were talking in an earlier podcast how much the prices of coffee have gone up because Trump put a 50% tariff on Brazil because he didn't like the outcome of putting the corrupt former president in prison. And so he put a 50% levy on all products coming from Brazil. Well, guess where our coffee comes from? Comes from Brazil. So yeah, we need other countries. We cannot grow or make or produce everything in this country. We drill for oil in this country, we frack for oil in this country, but we do not have the refineries in this country to refine our own oil. And you can say, okay, well, we should have our own refineries. Okay, well, you talk to Big Oil then and tell them that they need to invest in putting in the refineries to refine our oil rather than selling it abroad. And Trump can say drill, baby, drill, but the oil companies, our oil companies, don't want to drill, baby, drill, because then their profits go down because we export our oil overseas and they want to keep their own profits up. So they're not going to drill any more than they're going to drill because then that reduces their own profits. And if you want them, our oil companies, to build refineries, then there's now tariffs on steel because this country does not produce steel. So how high do you want the price of gas in this country to be? You're going to have to import steel to build refineries that were going to take a long time to refine our oil. In the meantime, the price of our gasoline is going to go sky high. I mean, everything is quite complicated. It's not just a simple, well, we're going to put tariffs on everything and we're going to be independent and isolated. It doesn't work that way. The world is much more complicated than that. Unless you want to go entirely without drinking coffee and without having any of the standards of living that we enjoy today. If you want to go back to pre-electricity and stop driving a car and go back to walking or riding a horse or bicycling, carrying your own water by hand. I mean, you have to think about what you're actually asking for. So, Mark Scott, what do you think of what Thomas says?
What was the question?
Now that I've rambled. Huh? What was the question?
What was the question again?
What was the question?
Oh,
He
soft power.
rarely agrees.
All right.
And
So Tom,
soft power.
yeah, soft power. All right.
Why
so
do we
Thomas,
care about the rest of the world? They can figure out their own problems. And America first.
Yeah, America first. There you go. So, yeah, Brooklyn is correct. The U.S. spends less than 0.05% of their GDP on soft power tools, such as diplomacy, foreign aid, and cultural programs, compared to the military, which we spend 3.4%, which is about 100 times more. So, there's the comparison to it. And soft power is definitely cheaper. There's no doubt about it. And it builds goodwill. And if there's anything that the United States needs today in the world, it's a little bit of goodwill, because we've got a president that just seems to like to piss everybody off. Matter of fact, his entire administration seems to like to piss everybody off. Now, why did we boycott the G20 summit? I'll tell you something, Thomas, I don't get it either. It's an important, it's economics. You would think we would want to be right in there, and we opened up the door for China. Hey, congratulations, Trumpy Trump. Great job there. Do we have the greatest economy? We have a very good economy. We have an economy that a lot of people would envy, but it is being dismantled. And it is being dismantled. And if you don't believe that, take a look at some of the deals that our good friends to our north, Canada, is making all over the world. They are totally bypassing us. And eventually, maybe the world's India, yeah, maybe the world is actually looking around and saying, what do we care about the United States? The hell with them. You guys figure out your own problem. Us first. Maybe, that's the kind of attitude that you're putting out there. And, here's the thing that gets me is you say the president's leadership. It's all down to the president's leadership. And then you say, we have enough problems here at home. Well, gee, with the president's leadership, what problems do we have, supposedly? Now, rational people could see a lot of problems that we have. Irrational people don't see any problems because they're told that gas is less than $2 a gallon. And even though when they go and they pay, $2.75 a gallon, they somehow in your brain says, oh, that was really $2. I don't know how you do it. I've never been able to think that way. Congratulations to that. If your coffee is cheaper than you thought it was before, congratulations to you. I don't know where you're shopping, but whatever. And Brooklyn's right. We don't care if you agree with us or not, and we appreciate you listening and keeping that open mind. But sometimes you gotta wade through the bullshit.
Yeah, over $3 a gallon here.
Well, down here it's $2.75. But so you gotta wade through some of the bullshit here, Thomas. And here's the deal. No nation on the face of the earth, no matter how powerful and great and all star-spangled banner great you think we are, can exist on its own in today's global society. And I know everybody says, oh, you're a globalist. Because you know what? In today's society, you've got to be a globalist. And if you think globalization is something new, then you don't know anything about history. From ancient times, people traded. There was economic ties around the world because even the Roman Empire couldn't produce everything. It had to get things from other places. It understood that. And how did it get things from other places at decent rates? They used soft power. The Roman legions didn't go to China to get spices. They didn't do that. They did trade. And trade is soft power. Trade is part of soft power. Diplomacy is part of soft power. You want to get rid of something that's worthless when it comes to soft power? Send Marco Rubio packing, because he's about as worthless as that. But diplomacy is soft power. But he's worthless. So you want to do that? Please be my guest. But the fact is that we have got to realize, everybody seems to say to me, I've even got students to say, oh my gosh, you're a globalist. We've always been globalists. It all depended on our understanding of the world around us, how big it was. How do you think we won the revolution? In the most ancient of ancient times, if I lived in Spartanburg, South Carolina, and the nearest village I knew about was 100 miles away in what is now Colombia, and I traded with them, I was being a globalist. Because that was the globe as I understood it. I may have known that Asheville was another 60 miles up the road, but that was my sphere of my understanding of what the globe was. And we traded because my community, could not supply everything that it needed, or even everything that it wanted. In a lot of cases, it's what it wants more than what it needs. Today, with modern technology, it's what we need as much as what we want. Those spices that came from the Far East, they were just nice. That was kind of an extra. But the things that we need today in a modern society, those are now needs. Usable oil, steel, aluminum, things like that. Those things that we don't produce, they are now not just wants, they're needs. And that's the advantage of soft power. And we should have been front and center on that G20. Should have been front and center there because we want to be involved, because eventually, Thomas, they're going to take your attitude. All those countries are going to say, why should we really care about the United States? The hell with them. Go figure out your own problems. Go figure out where you're going to get your own aluminum from, or your own timber, or your own, and devastate your country. That's fine. It's not sustainable. And I think that's the issue. What do you think, Scott?
Well, I think a lot of Canadians are doing that. They're embargoing American products, and Mark Carney, the prime minister, is going around the world, making a deal with India, making a deal with China, and he's actually making genuine trade deals. So he's everywhere, Mark Carney, doing everything at the G20, and we're nowhere. So yeah, I agree with you, Mark. They're just going to say, forget the United States. Canada pretty much already has. So Scott, what do you say?
Well, I mean, I'm glad that this guy says that he doesn't get it. We criticized the Trump administration for not going to the G20 based on the idea that they were not going to the G20 for reasons other than business. The G20 was held in South Africa. South Africa recently turned the G20 over to us. I think it was Monday, actually. But every country gets a year, and South Africa had the host of the G20 for the year 2025. We didn't go because Trump's read somewhere that in South Africa there's a genocide against white people. It's not true. It is. I mean, the president of South Africa, Cyril Ramaphosa, kind of busted out laughing when he had to say that the United States wanted to boycott the G20 based on, a Fox News story that has no bearing in truth. And is Thomas from Toledo. The fact is that the United States dropped the boycott 2 days before the summit was about to take place and asked to be included because I guess somebody finally with an actual lifeline into the actual news rather than the made up news that so many Republicans seem to rely on said, we should really go there because the G20 is all about shaking hands, making deals, signing deals, deepening alliances, pledging support for all kinds of diplomatic and trade stuff that the United States frankly needs. As my colleagues here have pointed out, we don't make everything here, And here's another thing, Thomas from Toledo, that I guess hasn't occurred to you yet. We don't have any oil. We have oil companies. There are oil companies, they're multinational, they're globalist. When Trump comes back from Europe and says, man, I just made a great deal, we're going to sell more liquefied natural gas to Europe than we ever have before, that's great for the gas companies. But for you sitting in Toledo, Ohio, Thomas, all that means is that somebody else is competing with you for a limited supply of gas. And that means that your prices are going up. So the good news is that the gas companies are doing great selling gas overseas. But that the bad news is that American consumers pay higher prices because now there's competition for the same gas that would have been ours, not for free, but for less money if Trump hadn't opened up those markets. So when you say you don't get it, I think what you're not getting is trade. I think what you're mistaking is Trump's diagnosis of everything is wrong. You just don't seem to understand that he didn't really institute tariffs. He instituted something that he's calling tariffs, but he doesn't clearly understand tariffs. Costco does. Costco understands tariffs because Costco is suing him to get their tariff money back. They're saying, hey, our suppliers come from all over the world. We buy a lot of, I know this personally, they buy a lot of scotch, some pretty good scotch that would ordinarily cost us, if it wasn't private labeled Kirkland, would cost a lot more money. But they buy so much of it that they get a really good deal. So there's that. They buy a lot of wine from France and Italy and Spain. All of those got slapped with tariffs. Costco had to pay more for them. Once the wine comes into the country, they pay at the border. They chose not to pass those costs onto their customers, but now they're saying, look, the cat's out of the bag. We pay those tariffs, not some foreign country, right? And we want our tariff money back. And now they're suing the Trump administration to get that tariff money back. They understand the reason for global trade because, as Brooke said earlier, we don't grow bananas here. We don't grow coffee here. We rely on trade. We rely on people taking advantage of their comparative advantages. Right? This is really basic economics. They have a comparative advantage of, warm weather and lots of rain and sunshine. We don't have here necessarily to grow things that we can't grow here, and we buy it from them and we trade back other things that we have, which is at this point in our evolution as a country, mostly services, not really. We do have a fairly good agricultural sector, but we don't manufacture a lot of stuff here and we don't sell it other places. We sell our brain power. We have highly educated, our comparative advantage is an education system, is colleges and universities, is really smart people who are consultants and do work, banking, other computer services, software, all that kind of stuff that, frankly, I did for 25 years. And that's our competitive advantage. And when you throw away your competitive advantage, the result is higher prices, which we are seeing, right? And trade that should have been going to us, going to other places. And, even our military sector, which is second to none in the world, is hurting because deals are getting canceled and our military hardware customers are looking elsewhere for their military hardware. None of this makes any sense. We haven't and here's the newest thing. This is an update, okay? We have not lowered our trade deficit. That was what was setting Trump off. He looked at trade deficit and he said, man, we're being taken advantage of. We buy more from other people than they buy from us. Okay. I go to a supermarket, it's a chain called Stop and Shop, to buy stuff for my family, food and things. I've never once complained about Stop and Shop not buying anything from me because it doesn't make sense. They take my money and they give me the goods that they have. That's how commerce works. And this idea that we were somehow being taken advantage of because we buy stuff from other places is an idiot's idea of the economy, of the global economy. Slapping 25%, 50%, crazy numbers like that, right? As tariffs, because tariffs are like 1.5%, 2%. It's not a huge number. We're looking for is an edge. We're not looking for us to swamp the canoe. Right now, the economic outlook for America, which was the envy of the world, according to The Economist in 2024, is that we are going down from 2.8%, I think it was, in 2024 to 2.3% maybe this year, 1.7% next year, hopefully in 2027, I think it is, the tariffs will be gone and the economy can grow again. But that's a projection. But we have not lowered our trade deficit. And we're paying higher prices because American consumers will pay. And that's the one thing everybody knows. We will pay. We'll gripe about it, but we will pay. And they're collecting all this tariff money from us, from Americans, not from other countries. And they're saying, oh, well, now we can do what we want to do with that money, which includes giving consumers a $2,000 check or a bonus check or something along those lines. That they took more from us than they're giving back. You don't seem to understand, Thomas from Toledo, because you believe the shit that you're hearing from this administration and the media outlets that take their talking points and spread them around. But you're being fooled. You're fooling yourself. You're being fooled by fools. We belonged at the G20. We're going to host it next year. So it will happen, because it will happen at a Trump golf course. And it will happen at a Trump resort where he'll get well paid for it. And that'll make it more palatable to him. Won't do you any good, Thomas from Toledo. Other people are making money hand over fist, but you're paying more money. And you don't seem to be angry about that. And I don't know what to say about it other than, as a teacher, I feel it's my responsibility to try to teach you what's going on. And if you don't want to listen, that's fine. But this is what's going on. And your ignorance is sad and pathetic. And frankly, if you don't want to listen to us anymore, we're sorry to have you go. But this is what's going on.
And Trump has also canceled the economics report and the jobs report, other critical reports. He's refusing to release them. Is that correct?
Yes, and ADP put out the report yesterday. So we've lost 30, I think it was 37,000 jobs that we were expecting 40,000 jobs to be added to the economy. We've actually lost 37,000 jobs. I think that was the number of 36,000 jobs.
That's in 1 month, correct?
In 1 month, yeah. In just the month of November, yeah.
Yeah, and to add to the job loss in October. So every month has been a loss this year. Is that correct? Have there been any gains this year?
There have been small gains, and there have been gains that the Trump administration has come out after the fact and said, no, we added more jobs than we expected, and we should all be very happy about that. I try not to be too cynical as to say that they're cooking the books, but when they don't put out they refuse to put out numbers. But ADP, who does chart this stuff as part of their payroll service that they provide companies, says we've lost a lot of jobs. It's hard not to take them seriously and believe them. They don't really have a political stake in the game the way the administration has. So, yeah, the economy, by the way, you say we have the greatest economy. We have the largest economy. That doesn't mean it's the greatest.
That's correct.
It could be greater. We could be doing a lot better than we're doing right now. And basically partnerships are the way to go. And international trade is the way to do that. So,
absolutely.
Sorry. I apologize because I'm being mean, and I don't mean to be mean, but I can't stomach the idea that people are so deluded that they can't see the truth that's in front of them.
Well, you know what, Scott? We've talked about this before. Economics. When it comes to economics, people, it's sort of like our concept. A lot of people's concept of how the American government works. It's very rudimentary. I always, say people, the average person's understanding of American civics is probably equal to around about seventh grade, maybe sometimes ninth. And I think economics, it's even worse because it's one of those things that really isn't stressed an awful lot to understand. So, they can understand supply and demand. So, okay, that's pretty easy. I mean, that's rudimentary.
When you say that, and I think you're taking it for granted that they do, and I don't think they do.
Well,
I don't think they understand it.
Well, maybe I am being the eternal optimist, but the fact is that I really do think that this is one of those things where if you really, when people start talking about how the important commodities that we have, and, we talk about steel, we talk about aluminum, we talk about oil, we talk about this, we talk about that, and, the catchphrase of this podcast is the true power of society is knowledge. And that's so true. The United States is not first in math, is not first in science, is not first in anything at all, other than incarcerated people per capita, people that believe in angels. And, really, we're not the tops in anything. And I'm not saying that we ever were, but we had people in power that were, and that basically was that buffer. They were the buffer. We don't have that anymore, and that's a problem, and that's, I think, a problem for the nation, because there's a difference to me between stupidity and ignorance, and I think in many cases what we're looking at is just total ignorance, unwillingness to research on your own without going into your echo chamber to get your confirmation bias.
Well,
and
also
then reinforcing that.
We're also talking about systems theory, and
we're talking about all sorts of things here.
I mean, this is very complicated. You think about a gigantic spider's web, or,
Sure.
A chain link fence or something like that. Everything is interconnected. So with the spider's web, you pluck one little line and the whole thing starts to jangle. And macro, I mean, I don't even think I could begin to understand the fullness of macroeconomics or international finance or anything like that. The topic or the discipline is extremely complex, and people just don't understand what it is, and or how deeply interconnected and interdependent all the little pieces are, like a very closely woven, very fine tapestry. And the simplistic statements from something particularly like today's leadership, just these tiny little talking points, this or that, and I alone can fix it, and we just put on the tariffs and everything will be great or whatever, and it's all Biden's fault.
Well, they haven't explained anything.
They haven't.
And I would not say that it should be every American citizen's responsibility to understand macro or microeconomics. We three here understand economics to the point of, as it relates to our field, conflict analysis and resolution. And conflict, in a lot of ways, is revolved around economics. We understand that part of it. It'd be like me saying to an economist, explain to me the stability-instability paradox. They can't do it. Now, the three of us, yes, absolutely. We get it. We know what it is. We can explain the difference between neoliberalism and liberalism and neoconservatism and conservative. We can do that. An economist cannot. And I would not expect that economist to know those things. But when they work together, there's that understanding where you bring the fields together, and it advances both fields in a way. But to have some talking head like a Sean Hannity, who was kicked out of 5 universities and never graduated from a one, trying to explain this and sitting there going, my God, what are you talking about? That's where we come from, Thomas. We come from that. When they start explaining international relations theory to us, we have to sit there and look dumbfounded. And I don't blame Thomas from Toledo, Ohio, for not understanding it. What I blame Thomas from Toledo, I'm going to blame you here, Thomas, is only listening to one side of it. Listen to another side. And what you say, you rarely agree with us, but you try to keep an open mind. And I appreciate that. That's the first step, keeping that open mind. So my comment is where you get your idea about the G20 summit, where you get the economy, where the economy sits, your idea of what soft power costs. If you're getting that from one specific news source, do me a favor. Go to BBC, go to CBC, go to anybody. Go to they have a French English speaking. They have a Deutsche Welle. They have a German English speaking. Go to them and listen to what they say about it, because you're going to find the take is going to be quite a bit different than the Rupert Murdoch take. So hopefully we have answered that one. And that's all the time we have for today's episode. The Nova Society is a production of Nova Society Media, a division of the Phoenix Research Institute. We want to thank our production partners, Buzzsprout, who hosts the Nova Society, Audacity, our editing team, Apple Podcasts, the largest source of podcast and music online, Spotify, the most popular platform for the Nova Society, and iHeartRadio, your destination for all things music and podcasting. The Nova Society is available on all of these and other quality platforms listed in our description. And most importantly, we want to thank you, our listeners. Without your support, the Nova Society could not be possible. If you haven't already, please consider subscribing on the platform of your choice. It's easy, it's free, and helps our channel grow. For questions or comments, you can reach us at nova.society.podcast@gmail.com. So on behalf of Dr. Brooklyn Ann Weldon, Dr. Scott Gershworth, and all of our production partners here at the Nova Society, I'm Dr. Mark Bound. Remember, the true power of society is knowledge. Thank you for listening, and we hope to see you again next time. We'd like to thank our sponsor for this episode, the Journal of Interdisciplinary Conflict Sciences, the JICS. This open access journal, double peer-reviewed, provides a platform for emerging scholars to publish their work and engage in meaningful dialogue across disciplines. The JICS is currently accepting article submissions on an ongoing basis and is published through the NovaWorks Scholarly Repository at Nova Southeastern University. You'll find a link to the journal in our episode description.